So let's go right into 214 on page 1. Graffiti reward program. Top box on the right, Citywide Vandals Task Force is the one who will handle the details as to who gets the $500 and how it's delivered to them. So the only thing you really need to know out of there is the amount somebody can get for reporting graffiti. They can get $500, but we have nothing to do with that, all right? So UMOS, respond to report of graffiti vandalism and arrest the violator if they're still there. Prepare the usual paperwork, 61 onlines, etc. Photograph the graffiti with the department digital camera and do the graffiti photo upload in Omni. So just be careful of that. We all have smartphones now, right? It does not say digital camera or smartphone. It only specifies use a digital camera to take the photos. Immediately notify Citywide Vandals Task Force to respond for debriefing in all graffiti arrest. Get a log number from Citywide Vandals and put it in the notifications caption of the 61. Desk officer duty. Verify the response of Citywide Vandal personnel for prisoner debriefing. You're going to verify because remember the cop called them. Obtain a copy of the arrest paperwork. Attach a copy of the ICAD printout. If an arrest was made from a radio run, and you're going to forward it to who? 3 people. COXO, your SOL, and the CO of Citywide Vandals Task Force. Who is eligible to get a reward? We have a list of who's not eligible. So we are not eligible, police officers, peace officers, any other law enforcement officer, or city employee acting in their official capacity are entitled directly or indirectly to collect or receive the reward under this program. Prior exam, I don't know if it was sergeant, it doesn't matter because it's an easy question. They had a NYCHA maintenance worker doing the daily cleaning up on a rooftop, saw a kid tagging up graffiti, called up, got him locked up. Was that NYCHA person entitled to the reward? No, they are an official, a city official working in their official capacity. No good, all right? Let's go to, I'm going to bounce around procedures here. I'm going to skip to 1405, the use of auxiliaries as UCs. Let's go to page 3. Police action in a premise, licensed or unlicensed, where alcohol is sold, bar, lounge, etc., all right, club. Big changes to this procedure. This used to be where you see patrol supervisor duties, it used to be all captain. So they made all these changes and it falls on you. Good chance you'll see it on test day. So what is considered police action for this procedure? An arrest in a premise or elsewhere, but the condition originated in the premise, so it has to do with this establishment. A summons on the premise or employee for violation related to the premise. A complaint concerning the premise or in the vicinity of, and the cause originated in the premise which was investigated and resolved or corrected. Condition or police action that should be brought to the attention of the SLA, Buildings Department, Fire Department, or any other city agency. UMOS, request the patrol sergeant to respond. If unavailable, contact the desk officer. Take summary action, make complete activity log entry, and notify Detective Bureau Wheel. If, it's a big if here, right? The premise is selling alcohol without a liquor license or operating after hours. Very odd notification to make for the cop, all right? Detective Bureau Wheel, and that big if could be a problem on test day. Patrol sergeant, respond, decide the action to take, notify Department of Buildings, FDNY, of any apparent code violations. Prepare police action, licensed, unlicensed premise report, and forward to your CO. Make an additional copy marked Department of Consumer Affairs if, here's another big if, the arrest involves a cabaret, a public dance hall, a catering establishment, or a bowling alley. And make another copy for the CO where the premise is located if necessary, and file 1 copy. Direct any undercovers we use to complete affidavit of sale of alcohol if necessary. Have a copy filed in the arrest folder. And notify CO and the desk officer precinct of occurrence, and the desk officer makes a command log entry. So that's the only duty in this procedure for the desk officer. Good shot. The desk officer will not be the answer on test day if they hit this procedure, right? It's mainly patrol sergeant and the cop duties. Let's go to next page, page 4. Homeless contact guidelines, 21406. This was asked in the past. They revamped this procedure big time. And remember I told you, newsworthy stuff. There are homeless everywhere in the 5 boroughs. If I'm sitting on that panel writing your exam, I'm going to hit this homeless procedure. It's just every day there's something with homeless, all right? So let's start with the little banner. A homeless person apparently physically and mentally sound but refuses services is free to leave or remain at the location. They have something called contact for this procedure. That's any interaction between a UMOS and a homeless individual when the homeless individual is transported to a shelter. That's a contact. Arrested or summoned, another contact. Treated as an aided, that's a contact. Treated as an EDP, contact. Requested to leave private property or publicly owned property, not usually open to the public or not open to the public at the time of the encounter. And that is the last example of a contact. UMOS, interview, determine the need for medical, psych treatment, shelter, or any other treatment. Follow aided procedure, which we'll cover in 2 weeks, 21601, or EDP procedure, which is the last section before we start crams, 221. If the homeless is intox and leads you to believe they are at risk of serious injury to themselves or others, EDP them. If they happen to be a client of the Department of Homeless Services or other, contact the agency to respond if available. Advise the homeless of available services. Refusal after repeated encounters, we refer them to DHS. Again, that's Homeless Services. If they request or agree to go to a shelter, transport them to the nearest 24-hour intake shelter or drop-in center. Follow, when we're doing the transport, follow 20203. That is the recorder procedure, all right? When we're transporting non-MOS in an RMP. All male homeless in Queens get transported to the 30th Street Men's Shelter. And here we go with a new radio code, 1097S. When we transport a homeless to a shelter for any reason, 1097S. Remember I said, when you see a radio code in the book, fair game. Some of you probably never used this code. Now you know it, 97S. Next page. Make an aided report in forms unless we're arresting or summoning the person. And in the details, we're going to write, not sick or injured, we are going to write homeless. Also say if they requested or offered and they refused or accepted to go to a shelter. If the result of the outreach efforts, you will select other and include the circumstances of the contact in the details of the aided. If they violate the law, including repeated minor violations, take appropriate enforcement action. Highlight the next bullet. Request the patrol supervisor to all arrest situations. Any questions regarding enforcement action or removing them to a shelter, we contact our lawyers, the Legal Bureau. They're available Monday through Friday, 07 to 22:30. Other times, we get the duty attorney through operations. Make an activity log entry for all homeless individual contacts. Desk officer, one duty. Review the aided card, ensure its accuracy, completeness. If you're unable to approve it, return to the cop to have it fixed. Otherwise, if it's good, approve the aided card. Now we have something new here as well in this procedure. When DOH calls it a cold weather emergency, which is 32 degrees or below, This is what it tells the guys and girls on patrol. Be alert, always, but particularly between 16 and 0800 for homeless with no means of shelter from the elements. So they want you to pay attention more between 16 and 08. Ascertain if the homeless have available means of shelter. If not, and they consent, transport them as above to a shelter. If no means and they refuse, highlight it, request the patrol sergeant to respond, and then the sergeant. You will make every effort to encourage them to go to a shelter. If they still refuse and either mentally ill or intox, we will either EDP or treat them as an aided case. Additional data. Remember, just to reinforce, we got to read additional data when we read the guide to see if there's an actor attached. All precincts, PSAs, transit districts will ensure outreach cards are prepared by New York City DHS, and they contain contact information for obtaining shelter, and they are made available to your personnel. Homeless Outreach Unit provides info and training regarding services available, as well as strategies and tactics for interacting with homeless individuals, and this unit is staffed and operational 24/7. Big changes to this procedure. It used to involve the Homeless Outreach Unit. They are not even involved in the procedure no more, right? Definitely a very testable procedure. Let's go to page 8. (214.10). I highly doubt they're going to ask it, but it's going to take 1 minute, and there's a reason why I just want to cover it. Unlawful posting of signs. Upon observing a person posting a sign on a gutter, lamppost, telephone pole, or a tree on a public street or a highway, if we catch them in the act, it's going to be an admin code summons, and look what we do. We throw the sign away. That's the only reason why I wanted to cover it. So we're basically throwing away the evidence. I find that very odd, all right? Next procedure. Obscenity and offensive material enforcement. So UMOS, when we get a call, when it says a look at the box on the left side. So UMOS, you observe publicly displayed sexually explicit material. You're on your foot post or a sector car and you see something going through a store, a window front, all right? Or we get a complaint of publicly displayed sexually explicit material. A porno is playing in the storefront of some store. The bottom line is, don't do what you want to do. Go in there and fucking press stop and break the shit. We can't do that, all right? This is what we do. UMOS. It says, look at the obscene material. Notify patrol supervisor, and look what it says. Take no action. Don't even make an activity log entry, it says here. Just notify the boss. Patrol sergeant, you will get there and take a good look at the obscene material. What's a good look? Box the right side. Is it easily visible or available without admission? Does it show sexual conduct? Are people naked? Do we see sex acts going on? People fettered, bound, restrained? Do we see any flagellation, torture, bizarre, or masked or costumed? So, how many people in here know what flagellation means? You still don't want to fucking admit it, right? So, I don't even know what it means. And I'm 50-something, and I had to look it up. So, flagellation, in case they don't use the word and they give it an example, is the beating or whipping of the skin. Now, how many people actually partake? Everybody's going to raise their hand, right? So that's what flagellation is. Just in case they don't say it, they spell it out. Back to the patrol sergeant duties. So you take a look, you make an activity log entry. It's going to be a detailed activity log entry. So it's very odd. It tells the sergeant to make an entry, but the cop not to make an entry. You just got to go with what it says for this procedure, right? Don't take any action other than an activity log entry, and highlight the last bullet. Consult with the Legal Bureau upon completion of the investigation. The box on the bottom tells us we cannot arrest for Penal Law 235, which is obscenity, without approval of the Legal Bureau. That's why we are going to speak to them. But we may collar for Penal Law 245.11, which is public display of offensive sexual material under appropriate circumstances. Next page. Unlawful eviction. It's probably on every exam. Very important procedure, right? The definition of a dwelling unit is any building or portion of used as a home, residence, or sleeping place. Does not include a hospital, convent, monastery, or NYCHA property, all right? So unlawful eviction does not pertain to anybody in NYCHA if they come at you on test day. I don't think they will, but it doesn't apply. But it does include privately owned hotels, including those taking government funding. So what protects somebody from being unlawfully evicted? Legitimate occupancy is as follows. Somebody is occupying a dwelling unit pursuant to a lease, period. No time frame at all. They are there one day pursuant to a lease. They are protected from being unlawfully evicted. What else? Lawfully occupied a dwelling for 30 consecutive days or more. So look at what they just did here. The number 30. They didn't do it on purpose, but look what they did. 30 days, you are safe from being evicted. But now let's think about property in 202. The property when we have to make the extra entry and make a notification and get rid of it. What's the time frame there? Is 30 just good enough in that procedure? No, all right? It is more than 30 days in 202 with the desk officer duty. But over here, look, 30 days is good enough. I can't stress it enough when it comes to numbers and time frames. What else protects somebody from being unlawfully evicted? If you're in a hotel, single room occupancy, and the occupants request a lease, and it says a mere verbal request is sufficient, and sublet tenants are protected from being unlawfully evicted as well. What are the different ways somebody can be unlawfully evicted? When we hear unlawful eviction, we think right away locks are changed and all the shit is thrown on the sidewalk. There are numerous ways to actually be charged with unlawful eviction. So here we go. Use or threaten force. The landlord says, get out or I'm going to kill you or whatever, all right? You haven't paid rent in 7 years. Get out or I'm going to fuck you up. If I'm the landlord, yeah, I'm going to fuck you up. But that is unlawful eviction, all right? You cannot use or threaten the use of force, even though the person hasn't paid rent in years. Violence, no good. Course of conduct that would interfere with the occupant's comfort, repose, which is sleep, peace, and quiet. Deny, interrupt, or discontinue essential services like heat, water, electricity. Now, when it comes to that, this was asked on a prior exam, and I think it very bad question. I don't know if they protested it. Look at what it says in the star. A past exam had a landlord shut the hot water off, and they said it was not an eviction, all right? If you cut the heat, yes. If you shut the water off in general, yes. But for this exam, the landlord just turned off the hot water and the cold water was still good. And they considered that not an unlawful eviction. If I took that exam, I would be protesting because you got to have hot and cold. How are you going to bathe, all right? But for some reason, that was not considered an unlawful eviction. If they come at you again and they say you just cut off the hot or cold water, I would still pick that's considered an unlawful eviction. What else? We remove somebody's possessions. That's the common one we all know about. Remove, disable, change the entrance door or the lock. And failing to take reasonable and necessary action to restore occupancy if any of the above occur. All of that is considered unlawful eviction. I'm not going to touch on the legal bureau bulletins. You can read that one on your own. And we have all the bulletins for you in the different various packets. What enforcement do we take? So we will issue a summons if the victim is allowed to re-enter and the violator is ID'd. Otherwise, we arrest. If re-entry is allowed, but services like the heat are not turned back on, no arrest, still a summons. So we got to get these examples down. If the landlord turns off the electricity and the water, all the water, let's just say, we get there and he says, you know what? I'm going to turn the electricity back on, but I'm not going to turn the water back on. He's turning one on but not the other. Is that a collar or a summons? It's a summons. It is a summons, all right? I'm going to tell you now to write something down so you don't screw this up. There's 2 times we will collar when it comes to unlawful eviction. The first time we already said we cannot ID the violator. So he cut the hot water. I keep saying the hot water. He cut the electricity off, but we can't ID him. That's going to be a collar. The other way he gets collared, and write it down, refuses to permit the occupant to re-enter. Refuses to permit the occupant from re-entering. That is a collar situation. So if we get there and the landlord changes the lock, and then after we converse with the landlord and he gives the tenant a key to the new lock, what are we doing there? It's a summons because he allowed him to re-enter, all right? Collar is only when we can't ID or he does not allow the tenant to re-enter. Every other time it will be a summons. So now let's talk about the summons procedure. And it's a little, not complicated, but there are different rules for different boroughs. It will be a separate summons for each offense. Numerous apartments equals numerous summonses, all right? And it will be for either New York City Admin Code or New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. So if he turns off the water, the electricity, it's going to be 2 summonses, 1 for each violation. Anywhere except Staten Island, these summonses will be returnable to SAP part of a Manhattan criminal court. Return date will be a weekday, at least 21 days. Manhattan and the Bronx, it will be on a Tuesday. Brooklyn and Queens, it will be on a Thursday. And here is the oddball. Staten Island will be returned to Staten Island Criminal Court. It's still at least 21 days, but Staten Island is going to be the first Wednesday of the month. And you just have to get these days of the week down, all right? So pretty much it's only 3 days. It's Tuesday for Manhattan and the Bronx, Wednesday for Staten Island, and then Thursday for Brooklyn and Queens. The cop will complete the complaint information on the front of the summons with specific details of the violation. If it's in your presence, sign the complainant information section. If not, ensure the crime was committed and the complainant signs. If complainant refuse, you may sign based on information and belief if the information is complete. Next page. Since the complainant is a civilian, we will cross out the following on the summonses. We will cross out complainants and complainant, and we will write in officers and officer on the front of the summons, and then we cross out the following as well. I personally observed above the complainant's name. With a civilian complainant, their name, address, phone number go on the bottom, rear of the original summons. Under the complainant's full name printed, rank, full signature of complainant, date affirmed section. And we will personally serve the violator with the criminal court pink copy of the summons. If we're collaring, and is those 2 times, no ID or refuses to allow reentry, right? What are we doing? Just an online, no 61, no fingerprints, and no DAT. 3 no's when we collar for unlawful eviction, all right? Again, no 61, no fingerprints, and it's going to be no DAT. If you look at the next bullet, bring the violator to criminal court for prompt arraignment. And if somebody's unlawfully evicted and they're unable to get temporary housing, we will refer them to the New York City Department of Homeless Services. Very important procedure. Next procedure is the way we want landlords to evict people, the legal way, all right? Desk officer will assign a UMOS to assist in the eviction. Highlight the next bullet. The cop is there to preserve the peace and protect life and property. Do not assist in entry or in damaging property. Examine the marshal, sheriff's ID, and the warrant, and the marshal is supposed to enter in the least disruptive way. So there's two scenarios when the cop goes with the marshal. You knock on the door, and the tenant allows us to come in, or we knock on the door, and the tenant does not allow us to come in. The first part, when the subject allows entry, I want you to write something right after that. No patrol supervisor needed. He's not or she's not going to be requested if they allow entry by the marshal. Enter and remain until the process is executed. Notify the desk officer when the eviction is complete. Then make an activity log entry with name, shield of the marshal or sheriff, time they entered, name of the subject, and whether they were present. Who's going to be responsible for the property? Is it going to be the marshal or the landlord? If the landlord endorses the warrant, the landlord is responsible for the tenant's property and the eviction is complete. If the marshal has taken the property, activity log entry will get the following: name, address of the moving company, name of the driver of each van, time the van left, and location of the warehouse for storage. The next scenario now. We go there with the marshal and the tenant does not allow entry. Now, look what we do. UMOS will notify the desk officer and request the response of the patrol supervisor before taking any further action. Patrol sergeant, what are you going to do? Respond and assess. You may consider making this tenant an EDP. That's it for that procedure. Let's go to page 12. Anonymous Controlled Substance Program. So without even looking at this, just to tell you what this procedure is about. An example would be you are doing your son or daughter's laundry, and in their pants, you happen to come across crack cocaine, heroin. You want to know, is your child actually doing drugs? So you can turn it in and we can test it. All right, that's the purpose of this program. We cannot use this program, and it's going to say it, to see if our side hustle of selling crack, if the crack is actually good shit, and we decide, hey, let's turn it in and let's see if it's good or not. If you use the program for that, it says you're going to be collared, all right? And the other thing with this program is it does not apply to marijuana. This is only for controlled substance. So on test day, weed should not come into play. All right, so a person who uses this program will be able to remain anonymous. I mean, it's right there in the title of the procedure, and not have criminal charges or investigation instituted against them unless they use the program as a subterfuge, which is lie to get around the drug laws. UMOS, have the person call the local precinct and comply with directions of the desk officer. Desk officer, if a felony amount, highlight, if felony amount of drugs are involved, we will send an RMP to the location agreed upon with the caller. So felony amount, you're going to see what happens with this procedure. If it's misdemeanor, we're going to allow the person to bring the drugs into the command. Felony amount, we don't want them wandering the street with a felony amount. We tell them we are going to meet them somewhere and we're going to send a sector car. The rest of the procedure does not apply if it's a felony amount. Felony amount, all you're going to do is right there, have an RMP meet the person at a mutual location. Now, if it's misdemeanor, designate a code and give it to the caller. They give you an example, 106M482. The code expires in 1 hour unless there's an emergency. Investigate the emergency. If it's beyond the person's control, continue processing. Instruct the caller to carry the code while en route to the precinct. So this person has a code and has, let's just say, 5 vials or 5 bags of crack cocaine on them, all right? What happens when they get stopped? Look at the box on the bottom. Person searched in unrelated arrest and drugs are found and they claim to be participating in a program. The searching cop, so you stop this person, you will take them to the precinct of occurrence, wherever you stop them, and verify by contacting the precinct that issued the code phrase. So they're going to tell you, hey, I have crack on me, but I'm going into this precinct. Here's my code. Has anybody ever stopped somebody and they told you that? I'm going to probably say not, all right? If, when you call the command and the code is not in effect, they are getting collared for whatever they have, 220.03. If the code is in effect, they are legit. Now what happens? The desk officer precinct of occurrence notifying the issuing command to cancel the code phrase, and then this same desk officer, the precinct where we have this person, issues a new code phrase. That's if they're stopped on the way here. Now let's go back up. The desk officer will make a command log entry with the code phrase, the time, the location, sector assigned if we had a felony amount, the voucher number, the desk officer's name, analysis, entered by who, the date the person called back, because we're going to tell them to call back in a minute, any referrals, remarks, and again, the desk officer's name. Have an anonymous narco receipt prepared and give them a copy. Where does that go? In the property receipt book. After we take the drugs for analysis, instruct the person to retain a copy of the receipt and call for results when? After 7 working days. 7 working, not business, not calendar, 7 working days. In today's lesson, you're going to see other time frames, and it makes it a little easier. Everything today is working days to remember. When they call us, we will give results, either positive or negative. Don't give them the weight or how good or how pure the stuff is. If it's positive, advise the person to contact a family physician or appropriate treatment program, and also inquire if they will cooperate investigating the source. And if they do, we follow 212.12 intel reporting. All right, next page. To 1417, vacant buildings. This was actually asked on a prior test. When a uniformed member observes a recently vacated building or an unsecured hazardous vacant building, UMOS, examine the building to see if it's secure. Always make an activity log entry. If a hazard exists, then you notify the patrol supervisor. If a substantial hazard exists, or if this condition was not previously reported, now we notify the TSR. Patrol Sergeant, respond, determine the degree of the hazard. If necessary, have barriers placed and request additional police officers. If required, get ESU. TSR, you will enter this condition in your highway condition record, and you will notify Department of Buildings and complete entries on the highway condition record. Write something in there, anywhere in that procedure. Write no desk officer. Desk officer has nothing to do with this procedure. Let's go to page 16. Unnecessary noise violations. This has always been tested, and they made some big changes to it. So good chance you're going to see it again, all right? Again, quality of life in New York is in the tubes. So we got some definitions to cover. Unreasonable noise for this procedure is excessive or unusually loud and disturbs the peace, comfort, repose of a reasonable person of normal sensitivities, or injures, endangers the health, safety, or damages property or business. Sound reproduction device. That one should be easy, all right? Device intended primarily for the reproduction of sound. It includes a radio or other apparatus used for the amplification of sound, but it does not include musical instruments. So if you get called to a job and there's a radio blasting, yes, that's a sound reproduction device. If you get called to a job and people have a fucking band set up and there's no amplifiers, they're just playing drums and a guitar, that is not considered a sound reproduction device for this procedure. Private premise has closed doors, locked gates, or invitation-only entry indicates that only invited guests are permitted and the owner and or residents have an expectation of privacy. Highlight the rest. UMOS may not enter a private premise without a warrant unless consent is obtained or there is an emergency. Next definition. What's a premise open to the public? This is where owners have a diminished expectation of privacy. Highlight. UMOS may enter a fenced backyard or driveway if it's clearly open to the public. Advertisement inviting the general public, an open, unmanned gate, and the free flow of people are indications that this is open to the public. They're going to have to be clear on test day that it's open to the public, all right? Abandoned property. No reasonable expectation of privacy in vacant lots or abandoned warehouses, and highlight a warrantless entry is permissible. So if they're having a party in an abandoned property, we can go right in there, right? No warrant needed. All right, here we go with the procedure. UMOS. Interview all complainants and violators and determine if the noise is unreasonable. Consider if a reasonable person would be disturbed. Time, type of area, residential, commercial. Is it a busy Manhattan street? Number of complaints. Were they asked to turn it down and they refused? Attempt to correct by warning the violator. And if unable to correct and the violator is eligible, issue the summons. So the first step, basically, if the violator listens to your warning, this job is over. You don't have to do any more of this procedure, right? Everything else kicks in if we cannot fix this noise condition. Next page. So what type of summons are we issuing? First scenario will be an oath summons if no device is involved or the violation was not personally observed. So if they're blasting a radio and we're going to take enforcement, it will not be an oath summons because it says no device involved, all right? Jury report. If the violator is at least 7 but less than 18, and I would highlight it, we'll do a jury report and we will not seize the device. We don't take the radio from a kid, even though this kid now is older. The ages used to be different, but now it's 7 to 17, all right? Third scenario, we will issue a C summons if the device is involved and seize the device if lawfully able to. In limited circumstances, we may seize and issue a C for unamplified device. The box regarding documentation, you could look at that on your own. Let's go under the box. What are we doing with the device? We are vouchering it as evidence. Remember, if this is a juvie, we're not vouchering it. We don't take it from a kid. We give a copy to whom you took the device from and say they can reclaim it at the precinct of occurrence or property clerk. Mark the volume control on the radio, let's say, without damaging to demonstrate the level it was operated at. If impractical, to seize the entire device, attempt to seize a part that disables it like a power cable. Sometimes you go to these jobs where they have a full-blown fucking DJ setup and they're unreasonable noise. We're not going to take it all. Just take something that shuts it down, all right? Next bullet, highlight for sure, this is new. Photograph the entire device for evidence, and we will voucher the photograph as evidence as well. Notify Patrol Sergeant / Lieutenant Platoon Commander if unable to correct the condition or additional resources are required. Patrol Sergeant, assess the situation and attempt to correct the condition. Highlight, notify CO Duty Captain if you're unable to correct the condition. That's one time you call the captain. Or a warrantless entry may be required, and it's unclear if the premise is private, open to the public, abandoned, or an emergency exists. Note on warrantless entries. Warrantless entry into a private premise is not authorized solely for the purpose of abating a noise, or seizing a sound reproduction device. UMOS must have consent to enter, or you have to have an emergency. Noise alone is not such an emergency. All right, let's take our first break, and we will go on to more quality of life when we come back. The exam. You got to let DCAS know what the issue is and be guided by them. I don't know what they'll do. I mean, obviously, if you're away, military, or if they let you go away on vacation, you're going to come back and you're going to eventually take the exam. From what I heard in the past, it will definitely be a different exam, because obviously anybody who took the exam you took can now just tell you the 10 hardest procedures and you're going to be golden, all right? But if you're going to have a conflict, you need to read that notice of examination and get in touch with DCAS as soon as you know you're going to have the conflict. Like, if you know you're going away for months, then obviously you need to tell them that now, right? But we don't know the exact date yet, but it's going to be August 3rd. So wait for the official date to come out before you start harassing them. They're going to be like, how do you know when the test is? How are we going to make an accommodation? You don't even know what the test is. So as soon as it comes out, definitely get in touch with somebody at DCAS. All right, page 24. I want to do two more 214 procedures, because then we have a lot of discipline to go into, CCRBs. Care and disposition of animals. For some reason, they like this procedure. 214.33. So ACC, what does that stand for on the top box? Animal Care and Control of New York City. Now we have two definitions, a dangerous animal and a dangerous dog. What's a dangerous animal for this procedure? A mammal, amphibian, reptile, bird, or insect that menaces, attacks, or bites a person. Also, a dangerous animal is a wild animal naturally inclined and capable of harming a human. So this was added in this procedure years ago, a dangerous animal. Because if you have time on the job, years ago in housing, in PSA 6, there was a guy, I believe it was a guy, who had a fucking pet tiger. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And there's pictures of ESU scaling from the roof down, looking in the window, and there's a tiger, right? So now they included wild animals in the definition of a dangerous animal. What's a dangerous dog? It's a dog unprovoked in a public place that approaches or menaces a person in an apparent attitude of attack, or unprovoked in a public or private place that bites, attacks people or other domestic animals, or a dog that has a known tendency to attack or endanger people or other domestic animals when unprovoked, or last one, a dog owned, even in part, or trained for the purpose of dog fighting. In the box, physical and deadly force. Physical force is used only to prevent harm or injury to such animal, other animals, or people. Can we shoot a dog or other animal? Yes, we can, to protect ourselves or others from imminent physical injury. Imminent physical injury. So be careful of that. We didn't cover deadly physical force, which is going to be covered in 221. But you all should remember it from the academy. When it comes to the dog or animal, they only have to present a threat of physical injury, not SPI or death. Physical injury. And just because I mentioned it to tell you what they did on a prior exam, we all assume when we shoot an animal, it's a dog, because that's what we shoot a lot. When we go into apartments, search warrant or whatever, on a prior exam, they had a raccoon go up to a cop's partner and was going to bite him or something like that. And the answer was, you could shoot the raccoon. Some people forgot, because we all only think we could shoot a dog, all right? It's an animal, period, that we can shoot. Imminent threat of physical injury. Before using DPF, make every attempt at other reasonable means to contain the threat from the dangerous animal. So here's the procedure now. UMOS. Have radio request an ACC unit to respond if the animal presents a danger or is left uncared for. Make an aided card if necessary, and fill out a dangerous animal bite report for an animal bite or a dangerous animal, and look what it says in the box. Even if we get there and the animal is 90 zebra, still prepare to form, or no one is injured, still prepare the form. Put the ICAD number on both forms. Request ESU to respond if ACC cannot respond expeditiously, which is 15 to 30 minutes, or the response time cannot be ascertained, or the owner or person in control of the premise is arrested, going to the hospital, and no one is able to care for the animal. Request ESU. If and when ACC shows up, deliver the animal to them. Request the patrol sergeant respond. Make a collar if necessary, and it will be from the Agriculture and Markets Law or the Admin Code. Report to the desk officer and submit the dangerous animal bite report and the aided if we had to do one. We will DAT if possible, make an activity log entry including the form with the arrest paperwork and note on the arrest checklist. And again, we charge Agriculture Markets Law or New York City Admin Code, and it's returnable to criminal court. Patrol sergeant, assign a resource to transport the animal to an ACC facility if necessary. If you look at the bubble, it says ESU is the one that's going to bag the dog, and us, the RMP patrol cops, transport it to an ACC facility. Have a kennel brought to the scene from the command concerned. We can get additional kennels from an adjoining command or the borough. Now the cops, the lucky cops who are doing the transport of this dog. Put the kennel in the back seat of the RMP if necessary. Remove the seat. Box on the right. Never place an animal in a trunk of the department vehicle. Transport the animal to ACC. Be prepared to articulate the circumstances and the owner's info, and get a receipt from ACC and give it to the desk officer. Next page. Desk officer duties. Review, sign, and distribute as listed on the form, the dangerous animal bite form. Department of Health copy goes to the mail and distribution unit. Command copy gets filed. Telephone, Department of Health, if. So this is not always going to kick in. Please know the times we got to call DOH. Animal has bitten, scratched, or abraded a human being. Owner is located after the form has been forwarded. Or a human is exposed to a rabid animal. And the last thing with this, in the box, it tells us the hours for these ACC rescue units, all right? In Brooklyn, we have a control center which is open 24/7. All other control centers are open business hours Tuesday through Saturday. Our rescue units are Monday through Friday, 08 to 2100 hours. If we need them for emergency assistance between 20 and 0800, or on a weekend or a holiday, we notify operations, and they will notify an ACC member on call and give them a contact person at the scene. Let's go to the next page. 311, last procedure I want to cover from 214, then we're going to go into 206. Well, not really 206, the old 206, which is now Admin Guide 318. All right, the 311, quality of life complaints. They've revamped this procedure. They have a definition of a chronic 311 condition, and that is 5 or more service requests in 28 days for the same specified condition at a location. All right, TSOP. You will record quality of life service request received via the phone. If somebody calls you up, where does it go? In a telephone dispatch log. Who maintains that log, by the way? TS. Does the desk officer do anything with that log? Yes. He will sign it, or she will sign it when? We all remember 4th, right? What about the 4th? After the 4th hour. Remember when we come with these numbers, you got to know what's in front or behind it, right? After the 4th hour, the desk officer will verify and sign. Inform callers to call 311 directly in the future, and if the job requires a referral to another agency, tell them to call 311 now. Confer with the desk officer to reconcile duplicates in the 311 system. Have quality of life jobs in 311 or the TS requiring investigation dispatched as a command assignment. Enter final dispositions of calls received via the switchboard on your telephone dispatch log. Now the cops who are going to handle this 311 job. Tell radio your 1061, give the location, respond expeditiously except if on an emergency. Promptly notify radio upon completion. Notify the desk officer of dispositions and inform the desk officer of jobs not completed by the end of tour. Patrol supervisor, you got one duty, should not be the answer on test day. Monitor performance of members assigned to quality of life service requests and ensure appropriate response. Next actor, desk officer or platoon commander. Ensure jobs are dispatched expeditiously and that appropriate action is taken. Monitor for improperly routed to the command and reassigned to the appropriate precinct or bureau command through the 311 system. Next bullet, I find it interesting. It's also new. I would highlight it. Monitor and give special attention to 311 jobs that have a media file attached, like a photo. So, if you got 30 jobs that came in on the 311 system on test day, and they want you to take which one takes precedence, obviously, you gotta look for the one that has a media file attached. I think that's pretty messed up that the job does that. So now you know, if you need to call 311, attach a photo and you're gonna get a quicker response, all right? Manually, highlight this, refresh the 311 system at least every hour, checking for jobs requiring attention. And also highlight this, you're gonna make a command log entry at the start and end of the tour indicating the number of pending assignments. Additional data notes with no actor assigned in this box means it's all fair game. It's just general rules with the 311. Refer conditions not within the department's purview to the appropriate city agency. Access 311 system on the app, on the job smartphone, or 311 website from any department desktop. Service request should not be created anonymously. Find the appropriate heading, fill in the captions with the pertinent information and your name, department email address, smartphone number, or the number to the TS. Under the box. So we're still on desk officer duty. Print a copy of each job assigned during the platoon and give it to the assigned sector. Ensure dispositions are properly recorded in 311 or the telephone dispatch log as applicable. Next page. Dispatch jobs as resources become available, except you will not dispatch jobs that are getting deferred to special units like the SOL. And look at this, highlight the rest. Dispatch any job with 5 or more calls in 8 hours because they require an immediate response. Determine if the job can be handled during your tour or requires deferral to special units or another command or city agency. Indicate all deferrals in the 311 system or in the telephone record as appropriate. So we've been talking about telephone dispatch log all throughout this procedure. Now they threw in the telephone record. Do not let them confuse you on test day, all right? Deferred job gets interim dispositions. Either it will be titled deferred or open as appropriate. Accept assignments not completed on the previous tour and prioritize for the assignment to the next available unit. Second platoon desk officer. Review the 311 terminal at 0800 for the last 24 hours to account for all jobs and ensure dispositions are properly assigned. So if you read that, when you look at that, if 0800 wasn't there and I am reviewing something for 24 hours, who are you automatically thinking of that should be doing this? the midnight 1st Platoon Desk Officer. That's the one that will review, process forms and reports for the prior 24 hours. Here is the exception, all right? The day tour, 2nd Platoon Desk Officer, 0800 reviews the terminal for the last 24 hours. Initiate investigation to resolve unmarked dispositions and take corrective action as necessary. NCO Sergeant is now in the procedure. Assist SOL in identifying conditions requiring a complex or sustained response. Ensure NCOs are aware of a list of locations of 311 service requests in their sector. Training Sergeant, conduct command level training on quality of life matters, including instruction on the operation of the 311 system when necessary and as directed by competent authority. Some more additional data. Command concerned will handle complaints of improper parking permit use, and it will give the disposition to the Traffic Management Center. OMAP is our liaison to New York City 311 system. That was never there in the procedure. If you gave me 4 choices, I don't think I would ever jump on OMAP to be the liaison for 311. But now you know it is. Authorized MOS. Sign on and sign off when unable to safeguard, even if it's for a brief period of time. Problems with computer equipment or department network issues, we will notify ITB's service desk 24/7. Now look at the next line. Problems with system failure or program malfunction get referred to New York City's DO-IT. That's Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications. So 2 different issues, 2 different units. So just so you understand, because DO-IT will come up when we cover SIMS. ITB is the computer gurus for the NYPD. That's one way to remember who ITB is. DO-IT are the computer gurus for all of New York City, every city agency, all right? So just remember those 2 things so you don't confuse who's who. And the last thing, MOS, doing oversight, analysis, or investigation using department computer systems as appropriate. Let's go now and let's talk about some fun discipline. Anybody here, who here has not been the recipient of a command discipline yet? All right, it's coming your way soon. Just don't worry about it, all right? It's not a big deal. It obviously depends on what you do, but everybody's going to definitely get a CD. You're going to get GO'd. Hopefully you don't get charges, suspended or modified, but a CD is going to come your way. All right, this is all revamped. So we're on page 34, 318.01. This is the old Patrol Guide 206. They combined and merged procedures. So there are 3 types of command disciplines, A, B, and now there is a C. A and B's are for the COXO to address minor misconduct or rule violations at command level. The C is for the department advocate to issue, in lieu of, charges and specs. So first, let's get the C out of the way since we really don't need to study it. C, only issued and adjudicated by department advocate for certain enumerated offenses in lieu of charges when there is no significant aggravating factor or additional misconduct. Max penalty, this you would need to know, is 20 days you can lose for a Schedule C command discipline. All right, now A and B. The penalties are exactly the same with one difference. So we're going to talk about the penalties, but let's talk about the differences now when it comes to an A and a B. And it's just how much time you can lose. In A, you can lose up to 5 days, and a B, you can lose up to 10 days. Now, everything else we're going to talk about applies to both A and B. So any of these penalties can be given to you for an A or a B, C, D. Here we go. Warn and admonish verbally. Warn and admonish in writing. A copy will be filed with the papers. change assignment within the command either for a fixed period or indefinitely. So if you get an A or a B, C, D, and you're, let's say, in the NST, you can be thrown out of NST because of that CD. It says it right there, for a fixed or indefinite period of time. Next one I would highlight. The job can revoke permission to engage in outside employment for a fixed period of time, not to exceed 30 days, but only if the violation is related to the outside employment. The job can restrict out-of-command assignments, which pay portal to portal, which is known as travel time, and overtime for a fixed period, but not to exceed 5 such assignments. And then we talked about the last bullet, how much time you could lose. All right, Schedule A, command discipline. Non-judicial discipline that can be issued by a CO or an XO for any minor violation not specifically listed as a Schedule A in order to correct deficiencies. So there used to be in the patrol guide, in this procedure, a list of the Schedule A's, and I think it's 37. Now it says you could also get a Schedule A for something that is not on that list, another violation that's not on the list. You don't need to know the list, all right? But just know that just because it's not on the list, you can still get a Schedule A command discipline. So examples of these minor violations that you can get an A for: absence from post, assignment, or improper uniform are listed in the NYPD disciplinary system penalty guidelines, which is available on the LAN. So I don't know if you guys and girls even looked at that yet, but there's a whole disciplinary matrix. I think it's like 60 to 70 pages long. It's fucked up. Honestly, it's a wreck. If you look at that, you're not going to want to ever leave the precinct, okay? It's not a good read. Don't read it now. Wait till after you get promoted. There are over 30 items on the list of A's. Some items to note are the following. Yes, these are important. Losing your ID card is a Schedule A. Losing the department smartphone is a Schedule A. Losing a summons or summons book is a Schedule A. And the reason why we are noting those, because we're going to talk about the Schedule B's. And one of the Schedule B's is losing department property. That's a Schedule B. Except for what we just said, this property that belongs to the job is a Schedule A. You got to know that these are a Schedule A. We have a whole acronym coming up for the Schedule B's, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Schedule B now. Non-judicial punishment that can be issued by a CO or XO for the following. Here are your Schedule B's. So the Schedule A's are not there. I highly recommend you need to know these Schedule B's cold. Because on test day, if they give you an example and it's not a Schedule B, it has to be a Schedule A then. Or if it's something crazy, it's going to be a C or charges. So what are your Schedule B's? Loss of a shield. Failure to safeguard your prisoner. And remember the example I gave you with the failure to safeguard the perp. Don't think the perp has to be running down the block in handcuffs or jumping out of a RMP. If a perp is unattended in the prisoner holding pen, on test day, you are giving that cop a Schedule B. If a perp is unattended in a hospital room, on test day, you are giving the cop a Schedule B. Remember this, on test day, when it comes to discipline, you are dropping the hammer. Do not have a heart on test day. If they violate this, it's black and white. You are dropping the hammer, all right? What else is a Schedule B? Loss of department property, except what we said. ID card, department issued a smartphone, and if you want to write it in there because it's going to be on the next page, summons book. Those are not Schedule B's. Failing to respond, report disposition promptly, or acknowledge radio calls directed to your unit, Schedule B. Bringing alcoholic beverage into a department facility or vehicle unless within the scope of assignment, is a Schedule B. Now, department facility or vehicle includes a helicopter for aviation and includes the boat for harbor, okay? Next page. Loss of activity log is a Schedule B. And on the break this morning, somebody said, wait a second, my activity log's in my phone, so if I lose it, is that an A or a B? Don't fight it. If you lose your activity log right here, what does it say? No, what does it say right here? Losing your activity log. It's a Schedule B. If you lose your phone, what is it? A. So on test day, they're going to have to say you lost the old blue activity log, all right? They'll specify you lost your phone. They're not going to say you lost your phone, which is also your digital activity log. Now they are just creating a problem. So don't fight it. If you lose your activity log, they'll spell it out on test day. It's a Schedule B. You lose your department smartphone, it's a Schedule A. What else is a B? Failing to give your name and shield to somebody who requests it. This is new now. The next one, unauthorized radio transmissions, Schedule B. Next one is new. Unauthorized use of a department vehicle, Schedule B. Next one is new. Any force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language violation that, in the opinion of CCRB or the NYPD, is appropriate, that's a Schedule B. And the last one really doesn't apply to you. Any other violation, which in the opinion of the CRXO, should be a B after they notify the Patrol Borough Adjutant and they consult with the advocate. Here is your acronym for a Schedule B command discipline. It's a foul FRAP. Please know it cold. You got to know these B's. This will eliminate half the problem when you hit a question. Is it a B? Is it an A? All right? Bottom of the page, under the box. When discipline is to be taken for the loss or failure to safeguard a firearm, a consultation with the Department Advocate's Office will be made to determine the appropriate disciplinary action. So, on test day, loss of a firearm. Is it an A? No. Is it a B? No. We have to speak to the advocate, and they're going to decide. Most likely, it's going to be either a C or charges on test day. Next page. 318.02. Issuance of a Schedule A or B. Supervisory member, that's going to be you on test day, giving a cop a command discipline. Conduct investigation upon observing or becoming aware of a violation of the rules or procedures by a member of a lower rank and must be at least one rank above the violator to recommend a CD. If necessary, prepare supervisor's complaint report / command discipline election report and notify the violator if you do make one out. So that's the actual command discipline. That is the proper name of that green piece of paper, all right? And this other part they added, notify the violator if you do make one. I like that because what happens on this job, you have people who pass the exam and now they're a boss and they give out CDs left and right. Whether the cop is wrong or not is one thing. But what I don't like is they give you a CD and you had no fucking clue. Because the boss has no balls to tell you, hey, you did X, Y, and Z, and hey, you're getting a CD. Don't be one of those bosses, all right? If you want to do that, don't become a boss, period, okay? You gotta stick by your guns. So you give a CD, you tell the cop, hey, you did this, you're getting a CD. Now, you're going to give a CD. We got to get a CD log number. Where is it coming from? Notify the desk officer at the member's command and get the next serial number from the command discipline log, which starts with the number 1 each year. And the desk officer will make a required entry in the CD log. After you fill out the paper, what do? Submit the CD to the subject's commanding officer, and it says give a copy to your own CO if the MOS is from a different command. So I want to give you examples because this has come up in the past. So just what you need to remember is this is a command discipline. It's going to be handled at command level. So the CD number will come from the command where the cop is from, the one you are banging out. That's who gives you the CD number. Don't let them confuse you. So here is an example. I am a Midtown North sergeant. I have a detail going on in the confines of Midtown North. I have cops on my roster. Let's say one cop is from the 7-5, and this cop is out of uniform. We're in the confines of Midtown North. I'm giving him a CD. 7-5 cop. Who am I calling? 7-5 desk officer to get the next CD number. Don't let them fool you with where the violation occurred. That has nothing to do with where the CD number comes from. The CD number comes from where the cop is assigned. Remember, command discipline. So now, I just banged this cop with a CD. What am I doing with the original copy of the CD? Where is it going? Look what it says right there. Where is it going? The subject commanding officer. So the 7-5 CO gets the original CD. But what must I do as the boss who issued this CD? I got to give my CO a copy. And just think about reality, and you'll never forget this. If we're all assigned to the same command, it's very easy. If I bang out somebody from Midtown North who's assigned to Midtown North, very easy. I give it to my CO. We all work together. It's when we don't work together. I am a Midtown North sergeant. I just gave a 7-5 cop a CD. What's going to happen? In the mail, the 7-5 CO is going to open up the mail, and he or she is going to see a CD that I gave to one of his cops. And what do you think that CO is going to do? This is what I would do if I opened the mail and I saw that somebody gave one of my cops a CD. Who am I calling? I'm going to call the Midtown North CO and say, hey, your sergeant just gave my cop a CD, and whatever, we'll talk about it, right? So this is why you got to give your CO a copy, because the 7-5 CO is going to be calling the Midtown North CO and saying, your sergeant just banged one of my cops. So now at least your CO has a heads up. If we all work together, it's very easy. But on test day, I don't think we're going to work together. They're going to try and confuse you with who's giving you the CD number. Just remember, it's called a command discipline. It comes from the subject member's command. Now, you got a CD. Subject MOS, 7-5 cop. Your COXO will schedule an interview with you, if possible, on a date when the supervisor who prepared the CD is available. You will be advised that you can have, I would just highlight that, one line rep present at the interview. You can. It is not a must. When we cover GO15s in a little while, it's a must to have representation. When you're adjudicating a CD, it's up to you if you want to have a line rep. You will be informed of the alleged violation. It will be informal, non-adversarial, and they won't record the minutes. You'll have an opportunity to make a rebuttal. The captain will investigate further if necessary. You will be informed of the results and any proposed penalty. You will then be advised that you are entitled to take one of the three following options. Accept both the findings and the penalty. Accept the finding but not the penalty, and accept neither, and you're going to opt for charges. You will be informed that the decision of the CD review panel is final, and they may do one of three things. They will approve the penalty, reduce the penalty to any corrective measure the CO is authorized to impose, or increase the penalty to not more than double that was proposed by the CO. So let me just go through some examples here, because you have three options as a cop. Let's take the 7-5 guy as an example. Improper uniform. Midtown North gave him a Schedule A. Now I go into the 7-5 CO. we're adjudicating the CD. The 7.5 CO says, hey, you were improper uniform, I'm just making it up. I'm going to take 5 days. First option, the cop accepts the finding and the penalty. Yes, I was guilty, I was out of uniform, I'll give you the 5 days. Because you know what? In the back of my head, I'm going to take 10 more from the job. And that's what you need to do. If you lose days, you get them fucking back. They took 30 from me, but I got at least a year back. And I'm on video way past the statute of limitations. I got all that time back times 20, all right? So that's the first option. Second option, yes, Inspector, I am guilty, but 5 days is too much. So you accept the finding, but not the penalty. Now it goes to the borough, to CD review panel. The borough can keep the penalty at 5 days. They can reduce it. What you got to do in reality now is be careful. They can double it. So the CO wanted to take 5 days. They can now take 10 days from you. And I had a sergeant fight this, and he lost. It was CCRB issue. They wanted to take 5 days with one of my sergeants, and he said no. And we had no choice. They have some rules with COs. If it's given by an investigative unit, you have to like comply with them. He said, I'm not giving up 5 days. He took it to the panel. You know what they took? Fucking 10 days. So in reality, just be careful. Third scenario is, I was not in proper uniform. I don't know what that sergeant was talking about. He's wrong. I want to go to department trial. When you get charges and specs, that's what's going to happen. You're going to go in front of a department trial. And if you've never been to one, I hope you don't, because it's not pleasant. I was there twice. You are treated like a criminal, like a real perp. You would think like I just fucking killed somebody the way they're coming at you, all right? You don't want to be going to a department trial, but that's your three options. At the close of the interview, the captain will give you a copy of the CD, and now highlight, within 3 working days of the COXO's decision, you got to notify the CO in writing. Don't let them say CO or XO. You got to notify the CO in writing of what you have decided, your 3 options. So you got 3 options, and you got 3 working days to let them know. You can't mess that up. 3 options, 3 working days to give them the decision, all right? We have a citywide command discipline system. Supervisors will enter all relevant info for each case into the appropriate department database as necessary. Next actor, this could be you. Not the ICO, but it could be you are the other authorized member on test day. Look what you have to do. Within 5 working days of issuance, you got to enter all relevant info into the citywide command discipline system. And then again, within 5 working days of adjudication, you got to complete all adjudication entries. So everything in this procedure is working days. Don't let them confuse you with business or calendar days, all right? Next page. Schedule A command disciplines. Records and dispositions of convictions of Schedule A CDs get removed and destroyed on the anniversary date of the entry only if the member has no subsequent disciplinary violations, all right? So convictions of Schedule A's get thrown out in a year, as long as you didn't get any new CDs. Unsubbed A's or B's. All unsub CDs get removed and destroyed from the CD log on their anniversary. We're talking about unsubstantiated ones. Now, last part, a Schedule B CD that you want to have sealed. To seal a record of a B CD, the MOS will request by doing a 49 to their CO on the 3rd anniversary of the date of disposition. So you got to wait 3 years after this is settled to request the CD to be sealed. If no subsequent Bs or charges during those 3 years, the CO will expunge from the member's command folder. But if there was additional discipline, the CO will advise the member by endorsing the 49 and file a copy in the member's command folder and advise the member They may resubmit 3 years after the disposition of the latest violation. Let's go to next page. We got a bunch of consecutive procedures here. The first one is cause for suspension. This is when we must suspend on test day. We must suspend, all right? There's other procedures I'm not going to get to in here, but just so you know. There's a procedure that deals with modifying. So let me ask you this without even looking at the paper. Can you as a sergeant modify anybody? No, you cannot, all right? Can a civilian be modified? No, all right? Because think about it. A civilian is either going to be full duty or suspended. They have no guns, so the only duty status change is from full duty to suspended. There is no modifying, so you cannot modify, and civilians cannot be modified. So let's talk about our suspending members, all right? It says there are no actors in the margin here, but if we look very close, we will find two main ones. The ranking officer in charge or in command will be a uniformed sergeant or above, so that's you. Traffic managers and above, and school safety deputy directors and above, they can also suspend people, all right? Be careful with these two actors. Their duties are not exactly the same. Sergeant, everybody here, must suspend any MOS for the list below. These civilian bosses, traffic managers, school safety, are authorized, not a must. They are authorized to suspend civilian MOS under their command for the same list. So it's not a must for the civilians, but they can. And if a school safety agent is suspended, the school principal must be notified. Under the box is a little recap for you to look at home. Regardless of the actor, uniformed sergeant or civilian boss, we must suspend an MOS for the following. By authority of and without prior conferral or approval from the first dep, you will suspend a uniformed or civilian for having a dog in the car. It sounds stupid, but you need to know it cold. All right, you need to know it. A few things with these must suspends. On test day, the answer is going to be you must suspend or you will suspend. Do not have them trip you up and say, after conferring with IEB or the ICO, then you suspend. No, there is no conferral. When you get promoted and you raise your hand, you are given power by the first dep that if a cop or a civilian does one of these, you have the power to suspend. No conferrals needed. So please don't let them fool you. Drop the hammer, like I said. So what's a dog in the car? Some of these are new. Like the A, new. And just to reiterate, the people writing your test, they know, they're looking at it, they're like, oh shit, this was not here when I studied for my exam, so let's incorporate that. Yes, that's things that they do, all right? So the A, arrest for a penal law crime, misdemeanor or felony, that's a must suspend, or 1192 of the VTL, which is DWE subs 2 through 4A, all right? Be careful with the DWE. If it's 1192 sub 1, that is considered impaired, which is under .08, and is it not a must suspend. Watch out for that, especially that this whole A is new, all right? Misdemeanor or felony, must suspend. DWE, must suspend, all right? But the impaired, it is not a must suspend. The D, refusing a dole test, must suspend. The O is for order. Refusing a lawful order, must suspend. The G, for GO15, refusing to answer questions, must suspend. The C stands for club. Have an interest, association with, or patronize, you just go in there and frequent it, a good ass club, GD ass club. Yeah, it's stupid, but just remember it. That's it, all right? So if you go into a premise which is licensed or unlicensed and they are engaged in any of the following: gambling, that's a must suspend. Drugs, must suspend. After hours, must suspend. Social club, must suspend. And a smoke shop, must suspend. Again, if you're in here not in the performance of police duty, obviously. If you're doing your job, it's not a must suspend. Now, this comes up every time I teach, every rank. What's a smoke shop? Everybody has a different interpretation. On test day, they're going to have to say it's an illegal smoke shop. So-and-so was in there, and it's going to be a must suspend, all right? Back to the list. AWOL, 5 consecutive tours, must suspend, and refuse assignment at roll call or during the tour, must suspend. So let me just touch on a few of these. So the one with roll call, refusing assignment. This came up on I forget what exam it was, but it was recent. You had somebody at roll call go sit on a hospitalized prisoner. And the cop in turn said, with all due respect, something like this: I have 18 years on, and the last 3 tours, I sat in the hospital. I'm not going. Very politely. You know what you did on test day, right? Fucking suspend. As soon as he said, I'm not going, that's a refusal, all right? That is a must suspend. Now, real life scenario: if Sergeant gave you an assignment and you didn't say nothing, like he gave you the hospital assignment, you didn't say nothing, and you just went after roll call, went up to the lounge and just hung out. Is that a must suspend? No. You didn't refuse the lawful order, all right? You didn't refuse your assignment. You failed to perform your assignment. That is not a must suspend. So if you want to get slick with bosses in your command, that's what you need to do. But that's a fight you're going to lose with at the end anyway. But on test day, just be careful of that. The cop will actually come out and say, I'm not doing it. However he says it or she says it, that's a must suspend, all right? The other one, AWOL. Absent without leave for 5 consecutive tours. That's a must suspend. Now, we touched on an AWOL procedure, I don't know how many weeks ago. Do you remember that procedure? When we have somebody who is not at work 2 hours after the start of the tour and 4 hours. Who did that procedure apply to? Well, besides the actor, I mean, for the person that we're talking about being AWOL, was it uniformed and civilian or just uniform? Just uniform. Remember that, okay? That person who is late more than 2 or more than 4 hours, that procedure only applied to everybody in here, not civilians. Remember I told you, because if a civilian's not at work, we'll just go to Home Depot parking lot and get another one for the day, right? But this AWOL applies to civilians. Don't confuse the two. A civilian doesn't show up for 5 consecutive tours on test day, must suspend. Now, on the bottom, if we have a member who's suspended and they do one of the above again, it says they must be resuspended for subsequent violation of the above. And then on the bottom box it says, what if they're unfit for duty, you ask? Just call the captain. We have a whole procedure on that, which we're going to touch on in a minute. So that procedure there, 318.05, definitely coming your way. Please know it in and out. I want to jump to where we got 44. MOS arrested. Includes civilians arrested. You should know by now when we say MOS, it includes everybody here and civilians. So, MOS arrested inside New York City. What do? We're talking about the 5 boroughs. You're collared. You will immediately notify arresting authority of your position that you're with the NYPD. And if you receive a personal service summons for a criminal violation, a C summons, you ought to notify the CO and give him a copy. Promptly notify the desk officer precinct of arrest of the details if you are arrested by other than the NYPD. So if you're arrested in New York City by IEB, do you have to notify the desk officer precinct of arrest? No. All right, we're only notifying the desk officer precinct of arrest if we are collared by somebody else besides the NYPD, like the feds pick you up. Then we have to let the NYPD know, all right? If IEB is locking you up, we already know that you're getting collared, so you don't have to call them. Desk officer duties. Notify and provide all info regarding the arrest to IEB Command Center, Operations, COXO duty captain, put the above notifications in a telephone record and include ID of the captain that was notified. Next page. Now, if we're arrested outside the city, we tell you there's no desk officer, no telephone record. So you walk out here and Nassau County locks you up. What do? Immediately notify arresting authority of your position with the NYPD. Same thing you do when you get collared in the city. And now, immediately notify operations and your CO. Give ID of the local police agency. MOS, in both cases, arrested in or out of the city. You want to tell your CO about 4 things at least once every 30 days. Adjournment date. Final disposition. If you're appealing it. Disposition of appeal. And if charges are dismissed, notify the CO ASAP. Next procedure, before we take our last break. Unfit for duty. This procedure is uniformed members of the service on or off duty due to alcohol or drugs. It does not apply to civilians. Look, there's one actor, and there are only 3 steps, and they are numbered for a reason. You gotta know these steps in order. They may say, what's the first thing you do, or the second, or the third. You gotta know it in order. So they're gonna set you up on test day like this. You're gonna be at roll call. Conducting roll call, by the way, who does it? I'll just tell you in case you forgot, and if you forgot, you have problems. It's the patrol supervisor 5 minutes after the start of the tour, right? So you're at roll call. One cop is apparently unfit, bloodshot eyes, wobbling, reeking of alcohol. That's one way they're gonna set you up on test day. Or the second scenario is you're the patrol sergeant and you're called to an incident at a bar or a lounge, and there's an off-duty member who is there who is unfit for duty. So what do? Step 1, direct the subject to remain at the department facility or other location and await COXO duty captain. So the end of step 1 is setting you up. It's telling you to wait for the captain. So some people may think, oh, so now I need to notify the captain. Not yet. Please do it in order. Step 2, prepare. Supervisor's fitness for duty report. Then step 3 is to notify COXO duty captain to respond. That is it. Nothing else on test day. If you want to make some notes, you could. It's already there, but here's some more notes. No 49 for you. No must suspend. No taking guns. Any of this doesn't belong to you on test day for your sergeant exam. You don't do any of that. There are only 3 things you do. Please do not get this wrong. It's not a hard procedure, but you have to know it in step order. Let's take our last break, and then we will go into CCRBs and some other stuff. So anybody in here who hits the 3 years in July and you didn't file, once they come down with the official date, they will let you file. They may come out and open the filing again, or just file and obviously give you a reason why you're filing late because you were not eligible and now you are, and they're going to let you take the exam. All right, page 47, CCRBs. Complaints against UMOS may be made at any precinct PSA or transit district, traffic unit, IEB, or any other office of the department, including the office of the PC or deputy commissioner. So we want the public to make CCRB so you can make it anywhere on the job. To prevent an interruption or delay in vital services, the TSOP will refer an allegation of misconduct to the desk officer who will record pertinent details of the allegation. So, one exception right there, the TSOP will not take a CCRB because they play such a vital role, is what it says. That's really bullshit because we don't want the TSOP to hang up the phone and shit can it, all right? But on test day, the TSOP gives it to the desk officer who will run with the ball. CCRB complaints against a civilian MOS, like a traffic agent or school safety agent. It says, this procedure is followed with one exception. Do not call CCRB. We will fill out the forms, but the complaint will be directed to IEB for screening. So we're going to go through the whole procedure on the next page. There's going to be 2 phone calls you have to make. When a CCRB is against a cop, UMOS, we are going to call CCRB, and we're also going to call IEB. What you just read now here is if we have a CCRB made against a civilian MOS, we are not calling CCRB, but we will call IEB, all right? So against the uniformed member, it's 2 phone calls. Against a civilian member, it's only 1. MOS, report misconduct complaints, including FATO, to CCRB. That's unnecessary force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, or offensive language. Unnecessary force will be handled by CCRB. Excessive force goes to IEB. We'll cover that in a few minutes. Corruption, other misconduct not within the jurisdiction of CCRB will be referred to IEB. Interview complainant and give them the first copy of the CCRB to fill out in their own handwriting. So who is this MOS that we're talking about here, this actor? This is either a civilian or a cop who is basically stuck with filling out the CCRB paperwork. It's not the person who is receiving the CCRB. And it says MOS, so it could be a civilian. The 124 room person could be handling this and taking a CCRB on test day, all right? So, again, it says the first step, interview complainant, give them the first copy of the CCRB to fill out in their own handwriting. Now, I want to go to the CCRB report itself. Go to page 48A. Very good that you get to see it. I told you, always get these forms and stick them in a folder. So in the middle of the report, there's 3 boxes, which explains the 3 different ways somebody can make a CCRB: in person, by mail, or by phone. So let's go with in person first. The MOS will give the first copy of this piece of paper you're looking at to the complainant. They complete and they sign in the appropriate caption. We will assist or allow another person to assist. Details gets the reason the assistance was given and the signature of the assister. If they're limited English, we comply with 21290, but the preferred method for a CCRB is to use a language line service. If they're hearing impaired, we follow 212104. That's if they are in person. Now, if you are the cop or the civilian and you open up a piece of mail and somebody wants to make a CCRB, look what it says here. The number you get, because you're going to follow this procedure, the number you get from CCRB, you're going to write it on the top of the letter you just got in the mail. Attach the original letter to the first copy of the CCRB report and attach a photocopy of the letter to the file copy of the CCRB report. Third scenario, you're taking this CCRB over the phone. But remember, you cannot be the TS. You will not handle this, right? Handwrite as if prepared by the complainant. Complete all captions. If requested, information is not given, indicate in the appropriate captions. and advise that they'll get a written receipt from CCRB. The box inside all these boxes. In all cases, this person who's stuck with this job will review and sign all copies if made in person. Give one copy marked complainant copy to the complainant. What happens if we have a person who comes into the command and all they do is say, hey, I want to make a CCRB, but I don't want to do it right now. I don't want to tell you anything. What do? Give them the first copy of this piece of paper you're looking at, the CCRB, all right? And give them CCRB's phone number. Advise they can make a CCRB at any police facility by phone, mail, or in person. And tell the desk officer, and I would highlight this because it is not done in reality. Somebody walks in, I want to make a CCRB. What do? We tell them, hey, get out, or hey, we have no more CCRBs, right? But on test day, we give them a CCRB. And look what the desk officer is supposed to do. Hardly done. The desk officer will make a command log entry with the name, if given, description, and any other pertinent information. So now let's go back to the procedure. Go back to page 47 for a minute. And that last bullet said, interview complainant, give them the first copy of the CCRB to fill it out in their own handwriting. That's, again, if they're in person. Remember, it could be in person, by mail, or the phone. Now go to the second page. Next paper we fill out. CCRB, statistical summary sheet. Let's go to that piece of paper, which is on page 48B. Start with the bold box. In the additional comments section, the MOS receiving the complaint will note the condition of the complainant. Write, they're drunk or high. They're mental and it bears on their credibility. Note visible marks or injuries relative to the complaint. And with the complainant's consent, take photos of the body area where injuries are reported. Slide down to the bold box towards the bottom. MOS receiving the complaint reviews and signs all copies, and very important where the three keys are. The complainant does not get a copy of this summary sheet. And why? Because we are going to write that this complainant is completely stoned or completely out of their mind. This is where we dog the complainant to help our partner out. This is why we don't give them this piece of paper, all right? Now let's go back to page 48. So we've got the two pieces of paper that are involved. Very easy. First phone call. But again, this phone call does not get made if it's against a civilian MOS. We're talking about a CCRB against a cop. First phone call. Inform CCRB intake unit immediately by phone. Give them a summary of the alleged misconduct and the time the complainant arrived, or the letter was received, or the call was received. Name and address of complainant. Indicate if they're anonymous, transient, or homeless. Rank, name, shield, and command of the member complained of, if you know. Reporting command and name, rank, and command of the member transmitting the information. Second phone call. This one is always made, whether it's against one of you or a civilian. Make a follow-up call to IB, get a log number. Where does the log number go? It goes in the IB log number caption of the CCRB report. If you look at the next page, look at the top right. There is a box for the IB log number, all right? That's where it goes. Don't let them say you stuck it somewhere else in the details of some shit. There is a caption for it. When you call CCRB intake, you will get two things from them. You'll get a time and a number. The time recorded by them, and you will get either a CCRB number if it falls under their jurisdiction, all right, complaint of FATO, or a chief of department number for other misconduct. Request the complainant to remain, highlight it. If CCRB requests so, or you got a chief of department number and the complainant is transient or homeless. So let me explain that. If CCRB says, hey, tell this complainant to stay, we tell them to stay. If it's given a chief of department number, just so you understand what happens. When it's given a chief of department number, it becomes this thing which is a pain in the ass for a lot of bosses called a communication. You'll see your sergeants or lieutenants handling these. So if it's a communication, because it got a chief of department number, what does that mean? We're going to have a boss investigate it. So if the complainant is transient, which means they don't live here in New York City, they're passing through, or they're homeless, we don't let them leave. Because what happens if they leave? We're never going to see them again, and we can't do our investigation, all right? Very important piece of information here. So again, if it's a chief of department number and they're transient or homeless, tell the complainant to stay. You don't have to worry about what kind of number is it going to get, chief of department or CCRB. They will tell you on test day it was assigned either a CCRB or a chief of department number. Next, very important, notify investigating supervisor if you got a chief of department number and the complainant is transient or homeless, or the identity of the MOS being complained of is in doubt. Very important notification. You will notify who? A SIP is the acronym that I have. SOL, ICO, platoon commander. So it's basically every lieutenant in the command except for who? Ops coordinator is not on the list, all right? That cannot be the answer on test day. Prepare civilian complaint report. Review and sign all copies of both the CCRB and your summary sheet. Give one copy of the CCRB marked complainant copy to the complainant as a receipt. Complainant does not, highlighted, get a copy of the summary sheet. Then look at the next duty. And keep in mind, who is this actor? It just says MOS receiving a complaint. So it could be a cop, it could be a civilian. Look at what happens next. Have a command log entry made. So it could be a civilian or the cop, right? With the ID of the subject cop, if known, complainant's name and address, time they came and left, or called, or we got the letter, their physical condition, noting visible marks or injuries relative to the complaint, and the number you got from CCRB, whether it's a CCRB or a chief of department number. Look at the box on the right. If no command log in your command, then you, whoever you are, you have to do a 49 in duplicate to your CO with all the info that would have went in that command log entry. Under the box, reviewing supervisor must be at least one rank above the receiving member. If a complaint is against a member of the reporting command and it's made in person or by phone, ensure all related department documents are included with the report. If the complaint originates at a precinct, PSA, or a transit district, and it's from a radio run in the last 24 hours, watch out for the time frame, attach the ICAD. Complete pedigree captions for a reviewing supervisor on the CCRB report. And what do you do with all the paperwork? The reviewing supervisor submits it to the CO. Don't let them say you're sending it to CCRB. Don't let them say you're sending it to IAB's CCRB liaison. No, you give it to your CO. Box on the bottom. Can an MOS make a CCRB against another MOS? Yes, you can. I don't recommend it. It's been done. Yes, you can. Normally, it will be investigated by the CO chosen by the investigative review section of the chief of department, not CCRB. But if it's regarding remarks with somebody's race or gender, CCRB records it and sends it to EEOD. All right, let's go to page 49. Corruption reporting. Almost guaranteed. I'm going to just say guaranteed to be on your exam. It's on every exam. We must report corruption or other misconduct. Now, there's something new in here in the box. New York State law also requires us to report corruption to the New York State Attorney General's Law Enforcement Misconduct Investigative Office. But our call to IB satisfies this requirement. So, corruption or other misconduct. Criminal activity or other misconduct, including allegations of any kind, including the use of excessive force or perjury that is committed by an MOS, uniformed or civilian, either on or off duty. How do you report it? One thing you need to remember is it's going to IB. Now, it's how do you tell IB? First scenario is call IB on the phone. Same rule, though, like in CCRBs, the TS, you will not handle this. You will pass it off. So call IB, give preliminary facts, ID yourself, or if you want to remain anonymous, you can, and you'll get a confidential identification number. Furnish details of the corruption or other misconduct. IB supervisor may direct on-duty members who are not reporting anonymously to prepare a detailed written report in addition to the phone call, or request a member to await the arrival of an investigator. The one box right up above. Failing to report is itself serious misconduct, and if you help cover it up, that's criminal. Next way, we can write to IB. Address a detailed written report to the Deputy Commissioner of IB and forward direct or fax to the command center, 315 Hudson, within 24 hours. Second bullet, if you're going to remain anonymous, you can prepare a detailed written report upon becoming aware of the misconduct, and again, forward it to Deputy Commissioner IB, or to this, it's not even P.O. Box, it just says Box 1001, blah, blah, blah. So two things with that, because it's a little hidden here. And this is coming on your way, and I don't want you to get an easy point wrong. When it comes to writing, if you're going to identify yourself, you're not going to remain anonymous. When it comes to writing, you have to do it within 24 hours if you're going to ID yourself. If you're going to remain anonymous and you're writing the letter, there is no time frame regarding the 24 hours. It just says, prepare a report upon becoming aware and forward. So the 24 hours only kicks in if you are writing the report and you ID yourself. Next scenario. If a member receives a complaint of corruption against themselves, what do? Request a supervisor to the scene. And what does that boss do? Very easy. Please do not mess it up, all right? Supervisor, you interview the complainant first, then confer with IB, then you speak to the subject member last. On a prior exam, they had that question, and A, B, C, and D had different orders. Who you spoke to first, second, and third. Do not give them that. All right, next page. We're running out of time, so I want to cover two more procedures. Mayor's Executive Order 16 of 1978. All you need to do is to remember the two names in the second bullet. On test day, when you see the question that says, Mayor's Executive Order 16 of 1978 regarding corruption, the answer is going to be Inspector General or Commissioner of Investigations from DOI. That is it. I can almost guarantee this is coming your way as well. This is 1 point you got to get. You can't get less than a 1, all right? Here you go. Next procedure. Just gave you the answer. It's coming your way. It's on every exam. Civilian and uniform members involved in DV. Very important procedure. Comes out of 208. If we have a walk-in complaint of DV, we will notify the desk officer, and the desk officer won't let anybody who's not investigating the incident talk to the complainant. Responding members now. You're going on a 911 call. When you get there, obtain medical attention if necessary, ascertain the facts. Ensure the patrol sergeant is responding, so you do not notify them. You ensure they're coming because Central automatically sends the sergeant for DV cases involving us. Patrol sergeant, always have a DIR prepared. Give a copy of both pages and the victim right notice, which is the pink copies, to the complainant victim if they're present. Always apprise parties of counseling. If there's cross complaints, the next two bullets definitely highlight. Because what they've gone to here in the past is, and it can get confusing, who is calling the CO duty captain? There's going to be two situations. It's either done by the patrol sergeant or the desk officer. And it could get confusing. You got to know this stuff cold. So here we go. If we have cross complaints or there's doubt as to who is the vic or the complainant, the patrol sergeant will notify the CO duty captain, who will determine the action. If the MOS is a victim, we will notify the CO duty captain, again the patrol sergeant, who will ensure appropriate action and apprise of counseling. The sub-bullet is for captain. Don't worry about it unless you're a lieutenant studying for that now. Next page. Now, the desk officer is going to notify the captain. You got to know these scenarios. If the MOS committed an offense, notify the desk officer precinct of occurrence and direct a 61 be prepared. And no, the sergeant doesn't notify the captain. The desk officer does it in this scenario. If no offense is alleged, counsel the parties involved and have a DIR prepared. No notification is required, but if you remember from 21232 off-duty incidents, it says notify the desk, who will notify the captain. In the box, we tell you the two extremes. Patrol supervisor does not call the captain for the two extremes. No offense, just offer counseling, make a DIR. And if the MOS is a perp, patrol sergeant calls the desk, who the desk then calls the captain. The keynote box, look at it at home. Go under the box. The rest of this procedure is only for when an MOS committed an offense. So when they are a perp. All of this kicks in now. Patrol sergeant. Director 61, be prepared. Notify the desk officer precinct of occurrence. Desk officer. Notify and confer with the CO duty captain. Notify IB. They will determine the appropriate investigating command. And now you're going to get a log number. It's going to go in 3 spots from IB. Log number goes in. The results of investigation and basis of action taken box of the DIR. It also goes in the detail section of the 61. And then you direct the DIR is entered into forms, including the log number. Now what do? A 49, definitely 7 copies, maybe 8. You got to know everybody on this list. This is an important procedure, and it's really not that hard, all right? So, 49, 7 copies, and forward in a sealed envelope with copies of the complaint report and DIR. Where are they going? Deputy Commissioner, IB. The original DIR is going there, right? 2 commanding officers, precinct of occurrence, and the MOS's command, very easy. 2 borough investigation COs, again, precinct of occurrence and MOS's command. CO of the medical division, next 2, if you got to know everybody, but the next 2 be careful of. CO of employee resource section, and it says fax immediately. That's the only one that's getting faxed. And then is a big if. If guns are removed, personnel orders division. That is it for your part of this procedure, right? If you're studying for the other parts, there's a lot more to go that you have to do. All right, we covered a lot of important procedures today, but there's more in here that I couldn't get to because of time restraints, all right? Please read it all. And next week, please be ready for juveniles. The clock is ticking. It's going to be here before you know it. Please stay on track and don't give up. I'll see everybody Monday. Please get home safe. It's supposed to start getting crazy out there.